Hey guys, it's Filmington, and this is the second installment of the speculation series where I talk about baseball players under the age of 27 that I think are good buys right now, as of this moment, as of posting this video. This is speculation, this is flipping, so we're talking about holding periods of 9 months or less. I will be focusing on individual cards of all of these players to kind of give my viewpoints of what I think is undervalued versus the rest of the pack. And I'm going to be providing information on my opinions as to what the target price appreciation could be, and the holding periods as well. So again, these are all my opinions, so they might not reflect any of your other favorite YouTubers or experts. Gary Vee might vehemently disagree with me. Sports Card Investor might not agree. Your other favorites might not agree either. Alico3, whoever else you follow. So just wanted to clarify a few things that I also brought up at the beginning of my first video. Just because this is a new series, I'll repeat it again. Any price information that I provide will be contingent on raw cards only. This isn't to say that I think that a PSA 10 or BGS 9.5 is a bad investment for any of these cards. In many cases, I do think it's a pretty good investment with the appropriate multipliers applied. Next, I will be providing information on my allocations on all these cards at the end of the video. So if I rip a pack and I get a player from a pack, I don't really call that part of my allocation. I call allocations concerted efforts to purchase these cards, whether in lots, whether in singles, and also the denominator of my allocations. I don't include things like sealed wax, which I do have a lot of as well. And then I also wanted to address some of the comments that were added to my last video. They had to do with the whole notion of a smaller market team having players and cards of those players that just wouldn't have as much hobby appeal because they have a smaller fan base, a smaller following, just less awareness of those players overall in the market as a whole. And I completely agree with that. I completely agree that if you take the same player with the same stats and put them on a tier 1 market team, the Yankees, a tier 2 market team, the Cubs or the Red Sox, versus a team that's outside of the top 15 or 20, like the Oakland A's and Rays. In this specific case, I recommended Austin Meadows of the Rays. I get it. But the idea is that my projections, my opinions, my suggested value, dollar values to buy these players at is already factoring in their circumstance. And also what I would add is that these players are in situations that gives them upside. And this isn't even part of the speculation series or any of my projections. But we've seen it more frequently with teams like the Oakland A's and Tampa Bay Rays recently, where they've been willing to part with key pieces of their team with favorable contracts. A lot of these players have. They're not free agents yet. They're more likely to move. Really, any player is expendable. That's really the cost of them trying to compete year in, year out. So if one of these players moves to a better situation, I mean, the only place they could really go is up. What I would also add is another counter argument is there's a certain number of players, maybe the top 3 or top 5% of the game's players, that bring along a following that is blind to team loyalty and to market size. Fernando Tatis, I mean, do the Padres really have a big market? I mean, it's a cool stadium, but I don't think so. I don't think that stadium sells all of their tickets. Look at Wander Franco, of course, a big example. So it's not just current players, but it's also prospects that this applies to. Juan Soto, a lot of people said midseason that he would never have the same appeal as Ronald Acuna or the same hobby love because he was on the Nationals. And well before his team made it to the playoffs, his prices were trending up as far back as, I believe, mid to late August. First player is Luis Arraez, 22 years old, Minnesota Twins. Most of you probably haven't heard of him. Some of you are definitely already onto him. A lot of people had commented about him on my previous video, which didn't affect him being in here, but I am on Luis Arraez. Batting average, guys, is wildly unpredictable, right? So from year to year, the top 5 players in the statistic leaderboards are likely going to vary a lot more with batting average versus RBIs, home runs, and other stats, etc. And the analytics departments across the country have gotten more sophisticated, starting to look at numbers like batting average balls in play, line drive rates. Now we have hard hit rates, percentages. Major League Baseball StatCast has an exit velo, and some of these are also power related too. But Luis Arraez is a guy that has a high batting average floor. He's raked at every single level. He's drawn comparisons to Tony Gwynn. Swings from the left side. He tore up every level of the minors this year. Hit 334 in his limited 366 plate appearances. Hit 334 with a 399 on base percentage. In the ALDS against the Yankees, I think he had 4 or 5 doubles. This is a guy that also doesn't strike out a lot. So this is really good for guys to avoid slumps, prolonged slumps. After A-ball this year, he didn't strike out more than 8.2% at any level, which is highly impressive, especially in today's world where guys are just setting records with strikeouts. Now, the reason why he's a good buy low, part of the reason is because he's slipped through the cracks. He's been in the minor league systems for, this year was his 5th year actually. So we're not talking about a high round draft pick. Part of this is his profile. It's not as multi-dimensional as others. I'm not sure about his defense or his base running personally, but he doesn't hit for power at all right now. We're talking 10 home runs total over the last 5 years. And power is big in baseball, big for MVP awards, big for hobby love. We all know that. Look at Pete Alonso. But sometimes, and a lot of scouting departments have done this, is they look at the hit tool first and they try to develop the power second. Because if a guy has terrible plate recognition or more simply hand-eye coordination, it's harder to translate that into a guy that can be a professional major league hitter versus vice versa. If you're to go at it with a guy with a nice batting average floor, then try to change the launch angle, change the barrel rate, do what you got to do to get him to hit more balls out of the park, which the Twins, as we know, did quite a lot of that this year. Just he didn't really do too much of it. So, he's a buy low because he's not a can't miss guy. He's not a perfect hitter, but I mean, he's a guy that could hit, I don't know if it's next year, I don't know if it's the year after that, but there's a good chance in one of his early seasons he hits 330 plus. I mean, it's just unreal. That could be good enough to win the batting title. Who the hell knows? So specific cards of Luis Arraez. We are looking at the 2019 Topps Update US 247 Gold and Black Parallels. There's tons of them up on eBay, tons of them sold over the last week or so. Maybe people are ripping the new product, and are like, who's this guy? Let's just throw him up on eBay, see where he goes. $15 for gold. I haven't seen a lot of comps at 15, but based on where blacks are going, which is, I think $100 is a fine price to pay. If you have to pay $120, I would do that. Frankly, in an auction, I got outbid at $135, but then you also see some going between $80 to $90. So anywhere around $100 would be a great price to pay in at for that black. 2017 Bowman Chrome autograph would be the second card I'd recommend. Those you can find in raw form for around $40, maybe high 30s. I think that's a great price to pay. I also kind of like the color parallels. Didn't list them on here, but you're looking at a refractor 1.5x. Blue should be around 3 to 4x, gold 9x, and orange should be between 12 to 13x, I think. Holding period 4 to 8 months. That brings us to mid-March through mid-July. So, 4 months to give him a little bit more, allow that awareness kind of to develop. And that you could probably get the 25%. I'm thinking between 25 to 50% if you wait 4 months. But if you wait 8 months, wait to see how his plate discipline and skills kind of materialize. Then you could see upwards of 75%, I think. Next up is another Luis Robert. Some people say Robert. I'm going to say Robert. 22 years old. Chicago White Sox farm system. Really tore it up this year in all levels. Before I talk about him as a player, I'm going to talk about last year's offseason. Last year in the offseason, it was a pretty good time to buy Fernando Tatis, Eloy Jimenez, you saw their values tick up in mid to late January. And part of the reason for that was because they didn't have a lot of national exposure or hobby exposure yet. You could argue that maybe Luis Robert has more of that now than those guys did last year at this time. But it was really until January happened where the revised Baseball America prospects list came out, the top 100, and Tatis was listed first, which really helped him. It gave him a little bit of boost, but Eloy's value trickled up all throughout, I would say, January and February as well. So I think you'll see a similar pattern with Luis Robert this time. Slightly different situation than Gavin Lux, because Lux already kind of had his cup of coffee with the majors this year. He's already on the Dodgers, so that gives him a lot more recognition versus the White Sox. And you know what? I kind of like the White Sox right now because they're a team that I would bank on being a playoff contender 2 years from now. So maybe not next year. I think their World Series odds are like 75-1. So I get that, but I think in a couple of years, their hobby market could potentially increase. So Luis Robert, what did he do last year? Oh, not much. 328, 376, 624. That was a slash line across all three levels. 32 home runs and 1,000 OPS and a weighted OBA of 395 plus at all levels. If you don't know what that geek stat means, just know that 395 plus is really good. Now, he doesn't have a perfect profile. He walks 5% of the time, strikes out 25% of the time, at least with his 200-ish plate appearances in AAA. So that could go up once he debuts in the major leagues, could go up to 30%, maybe low 30s. Who knows? You never know. Could stay the same. But what I do like is that he contributes in many ways. So not only did he have the power last year in the average, but he also stole 36 bases, 11 triples. We see some speed here. So look at a guy like Fernando Tatis. Look at a guy like Eloy Jimenez. The fact that one succeeded and one didn't doesn't have to do with their profiles as a player. But I just like the ability for a guy like Tatis can contribute with the glove, can contribute with his feet, as well as with his bat. Now, Luis Robert doesn't have the glove. He's sort of a defensive liability, outfielder type. But he's got the speed as well to potentially offset the bat, maybe a prolonged slump with a power, etc. The idea for this whole speculation series is really to give you the right players and win on that, and also to give you the right cards of those players. So you kind of have arbitrage from two different perspectives. It's almost like buying a foreign stock. Hopefully the company appreciates and hopefully the local currency goes up as well. You win twofold. But back to the card. So 2018 Bowman Chrome autograph base in parallels, I think, is the best card to buy right now. Base you can get for around $230. Refractor, I think $350 is a good price to pay. Blue, those are all over the place. Allow those to settle down to 1,000 or less. Blue refractors are interesting, and I could do a separate episode on that because multipliers have tended to be 3 to 4 in the past, but starting with what happened to Ronald Acuna and others this year, they've shown to be at temporarily at least far greater than that. Number 2, 2018 Bowman Chrome non-autograph parallels. Refractor $40, blue $85 I think makes sense. Gold probably around $225, and orange $375. I think those are all great prices to pay there. And the next card would be, he doesn't have that many cards out there. The cheesy ones, the retail exclusives, the sticker autographs. I have one, but I'm not going to recommend that because I think the appreciation is with these 3 cards mostly. There are 3 different card types. So number 3 is 2019 Topps Heritage Minor League. He's got a few different ones, so I'm talking about the short print variation where he's swinging. It's the highest valued card right now, probably around $40. I have no idea what the print run is, but that wouldn't be a bad card to buy in my opinion. Holding period 4 months, brings us out to early March, maybe longer. You know, if you want to bank on what he can do in the major leagues, given that there's a risk that he could struggle, I'm not quite sure about him and what he can do with his first foray. I think a lot of people expect him to just dominate like they did with Acuna, like they did with Soto, and succeeded with that, of course. But then you have guys like Vlad and Eloy that did not. It would be a little bit risky to hold it for longer. So I'm saying an estimated gain 25% for 4 months. So if you release it before he And that's really like before he even makes the squad, which he might not. But I think there could be another bump. I think there will be another bump for sure when he officially makes the squad, whether it's in late March, but it also could be in a lot of the times these new guys, the owners try to preserve them for another year of control, so they won't get called up till either like the first day of June or maybe even late April. So I think another bump of 50% will be for that. And then after that, it's a little bit riskier. I have no idea, but the 50% is really that bump when he gets officially called up to the squad. Next up, we haven't really talked about too many bounce back type players, which will definitely be a theme throughout this series. I think generally these guys make good buy low candidates, and this will be Ramon Laureano, a little bit older than the first two, 25 years old, Oakland A's, center fielder. He's five tools, guys. So he's a solid player, dynamic guy to watch, cannon for an arm. He was well on his way this year for a very solid season. Ended up still with a 3.9 WAR, which is very impressive for a guy of his age. 3/4 of a season, about 123, I think, games played. 24 home runs, 13 steals, 288 batting average, 340 OBP, 529 slugging. And he's had a 288 batting average the last 2 years, which is a pretty impressive batting average for contemporary times, at least. The walks were down in 2019, but I think these could come back up. And his fly balls, and this is a positive indicator right here, his fly balls were up from 31% in 2018 all the way to 39% in 2019. And his line drive rate wasn't compromised. It stayed the same at 25% from year to year. His home run to fly ball ratio could come back down. Juice balls and really nicely engineered balls, whatever you want to call it, if they decide to reverse that, then maybe his home run fly ball ratio goes back from 19 to 15%, but he still has those higher than average fly ball percentage to justify a 30 home run season, even for next year, I think. So we talked about the whole small market thing earlier. He's not going to be a free agent until 2025, but Oakland has, shown that they can part ways with the guys. They've done it in the past. And I think that if he could move into a more favorable situation, really the sky's the limit. And these projections don't even reflect that, really. So the cards that I think are good purchases for Ramon Laureano are, first, the 2019 Topps Series 1 gold and black parallels. Gold, I think $10 is a good price to pay. Black, probably around 80 times 8. And next would be 2019 Topps Chrome color autographs, just because I think they're pretty cheap. I didn't list his Bowman Chrome autograph because he doesn't have one. And prices to pay on those colors would be blue, but I also like green because green in this case matches the uniform. So in most cases, I wouldn't recommend green. But I do like the color match, gold as well as orange. So we're talking about $50 to get into his blue or green, $70 for the gold, in between $100 to $125 for the orange. Holding period between 7 to 9 months. He's got to show that he can stay healthy. He's got to show that he can produce those same per plate appearance and numbers that he did last year. And we're looking at a target of 25 to 35%. All right, next up, another White Sox and another pitcher. A lot of people said, they commented on my first video saying never buy pitchers. Nolan Ryan's the only one that's retained value, but I would argue that I've done fairly well myself on speculating on which pitchers are going to exceed their expectations and flipping said cards and benefiting from that. Steven Strasburg's one I've done in the past, not this year, but earlier. I've done well on Lucas Giolito. I've done well on Carlos Rodon. You just got to know when the right time is to buy and sell those players. So, you know what? If you don't like to buy pitchers, if it worries you too much, then avoid this recommendation. But I think this one's pretty riskless, and I'll explain why in a little bit. Michael Kopech, 23 years old, same age as basically Walker Buehler after the surgery, so he's 2 years younger than Buehler. And again, the White Sox are emerging. I think they're going to be a playoff team in 2021. I don't think they're going to mess around next year. I think they're actually going to try to compete Giolito last year was the only pitcher with an ERA under 4.7 of their starting rotation, at least to start the year. And Kopech is a beast. He sits at between 96 to, I think, 97. He can dial it up to 99. He's had some command issues because of his inconsistent mechanics. He's mostly a two-pitch pitcher right now. He's got two secondary pitches as well that he throws, but fastball, slider, that's mainly what he does. This year, he didn't really get stretched out. He did start 4 games, only went more than 3 innings once, I believe. So it's really like, recovering from surgery, just trying to get him a feel of the majors and a feel of his command. But he posted a 5.02 ERA and a 6 FIP. So people right now, I don't think in March and April they're going to see him as a guy that underperformed and a guy that's going to be cheap. They're going to see him as an emerging arm, potentially a future ace of the game. And this you'll see why this makes sense when I talk about my holding period. So the cards of his that I really like, 2014 Bowman Chrome autograph and colors as well. Autograph, the base one you can get for about $20 to $30. I think that'd be a pretty good price to pay. If you're going to do multipliers for refractors and colors, I'd probably do like 1.4 for the refractor. I'd probably do 3 for the blue, 8 for the gold, 11 or 12 for the orange. Next card, 2019 Topps Heritage Autograph. Talking about the blue ink, not the red ink here, just because I think the price just makes sense a little bit more in the blue. $15 to $20. This one's he's got a pretty cool pose, so definitely check out that card. Next up, 2019 Topps Chrome Autograph and the colors. The base one, $10, and the color autographs, blue through orange, should really be between $20 to $45. Card number 4, 2019 Topps Chrome Colors Non-Autographs, blue through orange. I think between $20 to $45 would be a good price to pay there. Didn't list the refractor just because it was a little expensive based on what I saw. So holding period wise, I am saying 4.5 months plus. And what does that mean? Well, 4.5 months from now is mid to late March, brings us really close to opening day of 2020. Kopech has a few things working against him. We don't know if he's going to make the team because coming off a major surgery, these guys tend to be on innings caps, maybe 120 to 160 professional innings or innings overall. Also, of course, cited his command issues already. So even if he was to get called up, we wouldn't really know if he would dominate. So I think the play here is to ensure that he's strong, healthy, throwing a little bit in March. And based on that, probably lock in that 25% return, unless you're willing to wait till the stars align for him. And this is really a speculation series, but that 100% is really what I think his long-term outlook is outside of 9 months. With limited innings, he's not going to be contending for a Cy Young. He's not going to be absolutely dominating, I don't think, with those command issues that he has to work out. But as I expressed, I think he's got the raw talent and ability to eventually blossom into a great future strike-throwing arm. Just an absolute beast, future face of the franchise, perhaps. Next pick, this is the pick of the episode, much like Ketel Marte was the pick of episode 1. This is Rafael Devers, 23 years old, just turned 23, had an incredible season. The improvements he made were tremendous. I was able, as a Red Sox fan, to watch many of his games. I'd like to think I'm not biased here. I don't overall have a ton of Red Sox players in my inventory. Mookie Betts, it's a shame, but he's likely to leave the Red Sox now. That's at least based on rumors that are swirling around the city. Now that JD Martinez opted into his contract, we also have Xander Bogaerts signed long-term. We don't really have the budget, the cap space to also sign Mookie Betts to a long-term deal. So if Mookie Betts leaves the team, it could have a marginal benefit on Rafael Devers as well, being the new young offensive leader of the team, I would think. So Boston, we're not talking a huge market like the Yankees. It's a relatively small city, so let's not try to compare the two. But again, this is a guy that crushed it this past year. Easy power to all fields, 90 extra base hits, which you hardly ever see. His WAR jumped from 1.0 to 5.9 based on Fangraphs measure there. And he just made huge leaps from an offensive and defensive standpoint. So 311 batting average, 361 on base, 555 slugging. That was from 240, 298 to 433 a year ago. Line drive rate went up 6 percentage points, guys, all the way to 21%. He started to pull the ball more with authority. He always had the ability to hit to all fields, but he started to pull the ball more. His hard hit rate on pulled balls went up from 34.4 to 37.7%. This guy, I think, is juiced ball proof. So no matter what they do with the balls next year, he's going to continue to get better. He's going to continue to put up the same counting stats, if not better, I think. And that is because his home run to fly ball ratio actually stayed about the same from 2019 to 2018, looking at about 15, 16%, I think, around league average, probably even a little bit lower. Last year, he hit fastballs better, a lot better than he did in 2018. That was one of the biggest improvements on pitches. He continued to hit breaking balls well. 269, 330 split for batting average against southpaws and right-handers. He struggled mightily with left-handed pitching in 2018, 619 OPS. He still has a few things to work on, but his plate recognition skills are improving. Z swing percentage, which is the percent of time a player swings at pitches that are inside the zone, that went up, and his contact rate also went up by the same amount. His walk to strikeout ratio increased 33%. He struck out a bit more. He was pressing a bit more in the final 2 months, especially in September. But, there's still room for him to improve this. I think he definitely has an ability to be a top player overall by all metrics, and not just extra base hits like he did this year for years to come. So what cards do I think are good to buy for Rafael Devers? First and foremost, 2015 Bowman Chrome autograph. Doesn't say first on it, but it's his first autograph. Of course, he's got a 2014 Bowman draft card as well. But and you know what? If you buy raw, might be the way to go. You could always buy a BGS 9.5. I picked up a few recently, and because Bowman's pretty tough on the surfaces for that year, for that set. And so the parallels, I would say, are okay to purchase here. Prices to pay, 130 base raw, 1.5 times 1.5 for the refractor, times 4 for the blue, times 9 for the gold, times 13 for the orange. Next card would be 2018 Topps Series 1. This is his true flagship rookie card, but we're talking about the parallels, black and gold, especially black right now. Not a lot of comps. If you can snag one for between $250 to $400, wide range, but I mean, that's a good price. Golds are going for $45 to $50, so there's just a great multiplier there. The times 8 makes the $400 price worth it for the blacks, basically. All right, next up is 2018 Topps Chrome color refractors and autographs. Blue, gold, orange. Blue, I think 50 to 60 for base. Maybe 100 to 120 for auto. Golds, 90 for base, 180 for auto. Orange, 125 for base, 225 for auto. And guys, we're not talking about the freshman flash here. I know he has an autograph of that card, so we're not talking about that one. Card number 4, 2018 Topps Series 1. For lower budget people that want to maybe buy in bulk, people that maybe want to take advantage of a situation where they're exposed to less downside risk. 2018 Topps Series 1, guys. Maybe ComC, check those out. Prices should be around $1 to $2 on that card. Snatch those up, fellas. And card number 5, 2014 Bowman Draft. We're talking his original Bowman first card. Again, there's no autograph for this year, so we're talking refractors. Gold and orange only. Blues are weird to me. They're numbered to $399, not $150. I don't like that. I'm staying away from that. But I like the golds between 90 to 110. I like the oranges between 150 to 170. Strategy here, guys. 2 to 9 months. When Betts gets traded, I think you'll see an increase of about 25%. Perhaps, maybe not. That's why I have a range of 2 to 9 months. I don't feel too strongly about that point. But I do feel strongly about his potential to go up to as high as 100% if you wait till next June and July. Even August. I mean, this is a guy that I think he's a budding star. Unlike Gleyber Torres, they're similar in that they're young and that they improved a lot this year. Devers improved more. Devers also didn't get the publicity of Gleyber Torres. Gleyber Torres had probably the best, between him and LeMahieu, one of them would have won ALCS MVP if the Yankees had advanced. A lot of people saw what he did. A lot of people saw Gleyber Torres' 5 RBI game. Devers did not do that because his team won like 81 games. All right. That is it for today's episode. Leave me a comment. Hopefully you liked what you saw. Let me know if you disagreed. Let me know if you agreed. Let me know your thoughts about anything that I said. I know this was a lot to digest, so thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for watching the entire episode, and lots more good stuff to come. So, Filmington is out.